me start that recording. You know, it's like, we don't need to clap because I'm not singing any sound.
It's just fun. 1, 2, 3. Hey, you're almost there.
Almost there.
If I'm not looking at the screen, I think I'm better off than
okay.
like trying to watch
do
y'all
this
or
thing.
whatever.
Lock you in here. All right. This is Lori.
This is Peter.
This is Hamilton.
And we're with Action Heroes LA, Heroes Character Rental Service, doing another movie review, this time of
Failsafe.
Failsafe, 1960. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Perfect time. 1964 film starring Henry Fonda, Walter Mathau. I wrote it
Larry
down.
Hagman.
Larry Hagman's in it. Dom DeLuise has a small part.
Yes.
And Sorrell Booke, otherwise known as Boss Hogg, has a part in this movie and didn't even recognize him because we're used to seeing him as older and as Boss Hogg from Dukes of Hazzard. So, Peter, you want to go? This was your selection.
Yes.
You want to say why you picked this movie?
Well, I picked this movie because although it has some connection to the times that we're in now, how a president acts in a crisis.
Yeah.
Even though this is of course written and scripted, it's still how a person, or
how several people react in a crisis.
Yes.
An important geopolitical crisis, actually.
Yes.
And kind of posing a question about, what is the right action? Kind of a lot of moral questions about this. And
a lot of moral questions in here.
Yeah. Now I wanted to bring up, this was directed by, was it Sidney Lumet? Is it
Yes.
Lumet? Which I was kind of surprised to see. I had no idea he directed this movie. He's known for some pretty major films and quite the auteur, right? And all I can think of right now is Network. He directed that film, which is a classic.
Yes.
So Hamilton, do you have anything you want to add about the director? Anything you know about him?
I'm not very familiar with Sidney Lumet, but I know he's well regarded.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's one, I don't know. I've seen some of his films. He kind of is like surprised, like, okay, I've seen that and that. But yeah, you always hear of his reputation. So, and I know his daughter is a writer, and there's some other controversial stuff that went on with her, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, I can't remember what else he's done right now, but like I said,
he's considered one of the major directors. But anyway, this film, this was a very interesting. It was a good film. It was, classic suspense drama.
Well, classic suspense and drama, but it's all of the things where you tell someone this is what you can't do, but now you're in a situation to whereas you have to do it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? How the emotions that it brings out in you, things that holds true to you. Like, and I'm just going to quickly go off from that TV show Dexter. Mm-hmm. For the first season and a half, it was incredibly hard for me to watch because I'm supposed to be rooting for the killer.
Right.
And
he's revealed something. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so it was just
it's just
hard
uncomfortable. The Sopranos was a lot like that too. You find yourself rooting for this guy who's really this mob boss killer guy. But anyway, the whole anti-hero thing. I don't know. This one, I don't know if it had so much of an anti-hero. Well, let's explain what this movie is about. It's about the United States government and the military exercises it routinely runs to protect the country. So it does these exercises like sending bombers out towards particular, let's say, strategic points. And having them stay there, but it's called, it's the point they would go to if something were to go down. From that point, they would go on their mission to attack the opposing country. In this case, of course, this is a Cold War era. It's 1964. We're talking about Russia.
Right.
And we're still talking about Russia, aren't we? But so, and there's something that happens, and one of the things that they bring up a lot in the movie is the technology. It's like, can you trust technology? I noticed that was a big theme of this. Mm-hmm. So something happens where something goes wrong with the technology, and one of the bomber groups doesn't get the message that, you know, it's just a routine exercise. They think they are on a mission.
Right. They believe that the United States is being attacked.
Right.
So they go to attack the Soviet Union.
They go to attack Moscow.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is about, you know, the president has to, of course, come in, and he played by Henry Fonda, and he has to make these, like, Solomon-like decisions about what to do in a situation.
Well, there's a lot of drama because they do show the war room, mm-hmm. and there's conflict in there.
Oh, there's lots of conflict. There's lots of different people theorizing, you know, what's the best action to take. Hamilton, let's get you in on this because you said you had a lot to say about this film.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is kind of obvious for anyone watching this film, but I've seen Dr. Strangelove, I don't know, many times over the last, 30 years. And
which was actually made after this movie. It was the comedy version of this movie.
Right, okay, see, I didn't know which one was made first, but I actually read the book to Dr. Strangelove, and, you know, it was done serious, and I think Stanley Kubrick realized that there needed to be a certain amount of levity because it's such a scary thing, you know, to consider, like the possibility of nuclear annihilation. But I think it's reflective of the Cold War era. I mean, a lot of people who didn't really live through that time wouldn't really understand that was a concern for everyone. Living through the Cold War era was scary because there was always the threat of complete annihilation.
Oh, right, yeah.
Annihilation. And I thought it was interesting because Dr. Strangelove and Failsafe are almost like the same story but done differently.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know,
I've seen Dr. Strangelove, but it's been so long ago since I've seen it, you know.
Well, one thing, Hamilton, before you go any further, a lot of the people who are buying homes right now, they might be interested to find that some of those homes, because they were built before and around the Cold War, they will have either basements under them, even in California.
Oh, really?
They will have basements, or somewhere in the backyard, there will be a strange door someplace, and it goes to an underground bunker.
Oh, okay.
Because it was big that people built bunkers back then just in case nuclear war happened.
Right.
And they would go under, and they figured that they could last maybe about 6 months underground and then come out and be safe. Of course, we've found out that no, that's not true. And even they used to have this thing called the Citizens Defense CD, and some banks, you will find some banks, in fact the Chase Bank, which used to be Mutual Bank and everything, on Crenshaw and Vernon.
Imperial, I think. Oh.
Yeah. It actually has a bomb shelter under it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You mean the one on Imperial and Crenshaw?
No, Crenshaw and Vernon.
Crenshaw and Vernon.
Oh, okay.
Or Mount Vernon.
South LA.
Oh,
yeah. Vernon. Yeah, and there is actually a bomb shelter there. And back then, they had trained citizens that were given like World War I helmets, and they would usher people in there, and they were charged with getting people in there and closing the door. So they would have to know, okay, we have the amount of people that we need, and they close the door, and who's ever out is out.
Like there's a lot of remnants of that era. Like, I mean, sometimes you'll see when you're driving around LA, you'll see on like a billboard or something, you might see like a
sirens
little,
or something.
Like a siren,
Yeah.
like
There's one at the school
or
around the
siren.
corner.
Yeah, usually they were at elementary schools.
I mean, so it was a big deal. But my point was that Dr. Strangelove was done in a satirical way. It was there's a lot of humor in that film.
Yeah.
And this was a more straightforward take, and I thought it was interesting because they both were effective. Of course, I guess I'm a little biased towards Dr. Strangelove because like I've seen that movie so many times, but I was happy to be able to see this film, and I thought it was interesting too because like I told you, Peter, I had been watching Silent Running a few weeks ago, and I think the
very
thing that's
good
most
movie.
Yeah, I think the thing that's most interesting to me about that film is a lot of people consider it like a sci-fi ecology movie, which, I mean, to some extent it is, but I think it's also a reflection of the ultimate thing, the ultimate thing that could happen if there was a nuclear holocaust, because what they don't say is, back on Earth, the entire Earth the surface is destroyed. So everything, I'm guessing, is underground because there's a line where he mentions everything everywhere is 75 degrees on Earth.
Right.
The only way that's possible is if it's in a controlled environment underground. So I guess it's assumed that they've destroyed the surface of the Earth, but that would be like the ultimate consequence of nuclear annihilation, and I think that was something that was always on the conscience of people in that time period. So I thought that was interesting. But getting to this film in particular, I liked a lot of things about this film. I liked the way they opened it. I liked the dream sequence at the beginning. I liked, anytime you see people like Walter Mathau, Henry Fonda in the cast, it's going to be like an A-list type movie. And I thought this movie in particular, like I didn't make the connection with Donald Trump, but that's scary because it definitely makes the argument of why we need a leader who has integrity, who can be trusted to make the right kinds of decisions. Because this is I don't want to give anything away, but this is a scenario where we end up in a nuclear situation accidentally.
Yeah.
Maybe I can say too much, but
Well, the thing is it's not just that. It's not just making a decision that's 5 feet in front of you, but making a decision for what's 10, 20, 100, 1,000 feet in front of you, years ahead of time. What is the decision you're going to make even before something catastrophic happens? What will you do if it happens? You can't just say, oh, well, I got a plan. You have to have the plan, and sometimes you have to state the plan so that the other person knows, okay, this is where we're going. It's not a secret. So you have to state it.
Yeah, no, it's, honestly, I don't know why I have never seen this film. I don't know if it's just like it never played on TV or...
I don't know if you hear too much about it. I only heard about it from you. So
yeah,
it's not like Sidney Lumet. A lot of his other films get more mentioned, and recommendations than this one. And I don't know. There might be because I might see why too. It's a really good movie. One thing I have to say though, like I couldn't get into the tension of it. There's a lot of tension going on in this film.
Yeah.
But because you had explained the whole movie to me before we watched it, and which is why I wanted to watch the movie. So it was kind of like I didn't feel the tension so much as like, but it's like, oh, I can see how this is like a really intense film more than. So I was like, damn, I wish I didn't know anything about it before going in. But at the same time, I don't know if the kind of like the moral Questions, how it handled the moral questions and the back and forth might have been a little too simple and too straightforward for it to be considered. I mean, it's great moral questions, great, well acted and come across and make you think, but at the same time, I wonder if it's a little too simplistic. And maybe that's of its era. Maybe it's an early film by the director where it's where he's more sophisticated later in his storytelling or something like that. But it's still impactful, though.
There was one part, and I'm going to try to say it without giving anything away, but because a lot of it takes place in the war room, so you can imagine that there are military people there that are charged with keeping secrets.
Right.
And that's what they have to do.
Right.
They have to keep this, no matter what, they are taught to die with that secret.
Yeah.
And they will. So there is a part where they tell this one military person that he has to give information to our enemy on how to stop this attack. And within him, he can't do it. Right. Because he knows, well, what if, you know, there's questions with him. What if they did this? What if it's going to harm us? Even if this is a just bad happenstance, which it is, we can't, in case we can, you know, do a recall, I can't tell them this. I cannot give them this information.
My code, my commitment to the country. I can't. This is my commitment to being a soldier.
And it could harm us or make us vulnerable.
Right, and you don't know if they're going to use it against you or for you. It's kind of, I mean, this movie raises lots of questions like that, which is great. So, you know,
And I thought it was interesting when he eventually just couldn't bring himself to it, and they finally got that information, and then somebody was, that guy that didn't give the information, you know, he's a bad guy. And then the guy that wanted the information looked at that other person who was saying what a bad guy he was and said, no, he has women and a wife and kids at home, and he's a good man. I've known him. So he's not bad. He was doing what he was supposed to do.
Right. That's how you want him to react. That's how he's trained to react, basically.
Right.
So
I took that also as just the director showing the absurdity of the whole situation. That, you know, like, even through the chain of command, they could not stop what had already been put in place because of the way the pilots were trained. It's scary, you know, like, you know, the idea that they couldn't call back the planes after they had been sent out to do their mission, you know. And I think the whole movie does speak to the absurdity of a Cold War type scenario, you know, where everyone could die at any moment. You know, so I like this film overall. Like I said, I'm partial to Doctor Strangelove because, like, I there's a lot of things about that film that, you know, I've watched it so many times. I know a lot of little nuances and details in the way he directed the story, but I like the fact that he made it all satire, because I think that when you're dealing with something this serious and this heavy-handed, you have to show how absurd it is at the same time. And I think Sidney Lumet did that, but I think it would have been more effective if he had used satire. But that's just me.
Well, then it would have been Doctor Strangelove. So,
exactly.
You know, Like, it's just nice. It's kind of nice to have both movies. Like you said, it was good to see both takes, and you can have your preference for one or the other. So,
And the thing is, I happen to like them both. I happen to like them both.
I like this film, but I'm just saying I'm going with Kubrick in his choice to make a satire out of it, because it's
more effective for you. That's all.
the hardest thing for me watching this film was knowing that, the situation is hopeless and it's serious throughout the film. So it's like, man, it's like, this is horrible. It's horrible to watch this happen, to watch this play out. But, Dr. Strangelove, he's riding the bomb all the way down to the end. So it's got these iconic scenes that, just make it, just put it in your mind and kind of cement it in my mind as a classic film or whatever. So yeah, I guess I would give this film like maybe a 7.5 out of 10. I'm gonna rate it.
Well,
I'm sorry, I can't see you all. I don't know. If
you still can't see? Oh, I forgot to turn on something, but that's all right. I'm sorry about that, yeah. But you can see us now.
Okay, I didn't know if you were going to show up on the final video.
We can see you. Can you see us now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now I think it's time to let's wrap this up. I did, like I said, I kind of scanned through this movie a second time and I really noticed there was a theme about the technology. Should we trust technology theme? Which is, if anybody wants to get into it in the comments, if you see this movie, write us some comments. If you've seen Dr. Strangelove and want to compare, it's interesting too. So, Failsafe 1964. Anybody else last words?
Well, my last word is, if you haven't seen this movie, see it. Because if you haven't seen Dr. Strangelove, please go see that. You will love it. But Dr. Strangelove doesn't do one thing, because, it's just no way to make it comedy. And that's the ultimate solution.
Okay.
That Failsafe has.
Right.
The ultimate solution that he
I should also mention,
decides.
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this sooner. The way they handled the war room was interesting. It was a little different from Dr. Strangelove. They had the interpreter. I thought that was interesting. And they had that whole digital array or whatever. The way they did that visually to tell the story, I thought was interesting.
I never expected that from a movie from this era to rely on something like that. And it's like watching a video game, like a whole video game. It's like, what?
Right.
Well, one thing with because you mentioned the interpreter, I love the way Henry Fonda, who was the president, went to Larry Hagman, who was the interpreter, and said, "Don't just tell me what he says. Tell me what you think he's feeling."
Yeah.
And that, wow.
That was a big part of his decision making. It's like, they're going to say it, people say certain things, but what their intentions really are is something off at something else. And, he was savvy enough. He was quite the president,
Yes. And there's so many little things. This is one of those movies that you can't get up from and go do something and come back and sit down, because there are little nuances in the film that you will miss and you will not understand why something is so hard to do.
Right. Right. I had to sit and watch it all in one take, because when we started watching originally, my sound was messed up.
Yeah,
and
we had some technical issues.
Yeah, you're right, Peter. You have to be able to sit and focus on everything so you don't miss any details. It's not one of those things you can move, you can come in and out of.
Right.
Easily.
Well, I do want to wrap this up. Although Walter Mathau's character in this film is really interesting. He's just kind of let's see, kind of crazy. Let's see where the most extreme solution would go,
But you see, now I didn't think he was crazy more than he was.
He's not crazy, but
dead logical.
Yeah, he's
everything has to be by the numbers.
Yeah, you're right.
And if one number falls one way, even if it means he has to kill himself, well, that number fell that way, so that means I kill myself.
No. He's like, whatever's the most beneficial numbers that come out. That's what you do. So, see, very interesting characters in this film.
Yes.
So, all right, that's Failsafe from 1964. See it. Write some comments. We out.
We out.
Yeah.
Yeah.